Today we're going to look at rounding decimals to a certain number of decimal places, and later we'll look at terminating reoccurring decimals. So, sometimes we're told to round to the nearest whole number. So, for example, if I did some calculations and I got an answer of 12.1 and it said I needed to round to the nearest whole number, my whole numbers could either be 12 or 13. So obviously my answer, if I got 12.1, it's somewhere in between 12 and 13. And I need to choose which is the closest whole number, so the nearest whole number. Now it's pretty obvious when they're written out on a line like this. I know that 12.1 is way closer to 12 than it is to 13. So this one is going to round down to 12. So basically I'm going to be knocking this 1 off the end and turning this number into just 12, because 12 seems to be a fair representation of 12.1. Same as if it was 12.2. If I got 12.2 as my answer, I know that the closest whole number is going to be 12, because it's right there. It's way closer to 12 than it is to 13. Now it gets a bit tricky if I get around here, in the middle. How do you tell whether it's closer to 12 or closer to 13? So the rule for rounding is it cuts here, because that looks about halfway, roughly. I mean, it's not perfect, but that's the way it is. So anything on this side of that cut line is going to round down to 12. So if it's 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.3 or 0.4, it's going to round down to the nearest whole number. Whereas if it's a 5 or above, it's going to round up. So if I had 12.5, that would round up to 13. Same as 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, and 12.9. It all rounds up. So whether we're rounding to the nearest whole number or whether we're rounding to a certain number of decimal places, this is the rule. Okay, it's super important that you understand the rule, because this will come up pretty much in every topic that you ever do. There's probably going to be rounding of some sort when you do calculations. Generally 2 decimal places is what you will round to. If you think money, if I'm talking dollars and cents, cents is 2 decimal places. So yeah, generally 2 decimal places is your safe bet going forward. Anyway, when you're rounding, these are the rules you have to follow. If it's the number, if it ends in a 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's going to round down. If it ends in a 5, 6, 7, or 8, or 9, it's going to round up. And you might think, yeah, well, this one has 5 digits and this one only has 4 digits. Who cares? That's the rule. Someone somewhere decided that 5 was going to round up, so that's what you have to remember. 5 rounds up. Okay, now let's use these rules to round some decimals. So here we've got 9.53, and I want to round it to 1 decimal place. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be counting 1 decimal place, so 1, and anything after there I'm basically going to be cutting off according to this rule. Okay, so I have a look at the number that comes directly after that, so it's a 3. Now, I want to be figuring out whether this number should turn into 9.5 or 9.6, because it's sitting between those 2 numbers. So if I was to have a number line, 9.53 would be sitting somewhere here. So 3 rounds down. So it means that this number becomes 9.5. Cool. So this number doesn't change. I'm just dropping the 3 off the end. Now let's do this one. So I've got 4.928 and I want to round it to 2 decimal places. So again, I'm going to be counting 2 decimal places, 1, 2, putting a dotted line there, and now I decide, does 8 round up or down? So first of all, let me draw this on a little mini number line. So it's sitting somewhere between 4.92 and 4.93. So it'll be about here somewhere, 4.938. And I want to decide whether it's closer to 4.92 or 4.93. So according to this rule, if it ends in an 8, if the next number is 8, it's going to round up, which means that this 2 is actually going to turn into a 3. So this will become 4.93. So when you're rounding up, your last decimal place changes into the next number up. Whereas when you're rounding down, you just drop your last digit off. Let's do another couple of examples so I can show you what that means. Okay, so here we're wanting to round to 3 decimal places. So I'm counting 3 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3. All right, sorry. Let's change this to 1 decimal place. So we're rounding 1.237 to 1 decimal place. So I'm counting 1 decimal place, and I'm putting a line there, and I have a look at the next number that comes after that line. So it's a 3. So 3 rounds down. So this number is just going to stay as 1.2. Let's have a look at this one. So I've got 5.79 and I want to round it to 1 decimal place. So I'm putting a line after 1 decimal place. And now I have to decide, does 9 round up or does it round down? So according to our rule, 9 rounds up, which means that this 7 has to turn into an 8. So this becomes 5.8. So the important things to remember when it comes to rounding is that if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's going to round down, which means you basically just drop that off. Everything that comes after the line, you just get rid of it. Like here, 1.237, to round to 1 decimal place, I just got rid of that. Just trashed it. I don't need it anymore. Whereas if I'm rounding up, which is the numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, rounding up changes the digit on the left-hand side of the dot into the next number up. Because you're rounding up, this number's going to change to the next one up. Okay? So 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, your last decimal place before your line is going to change to the next number up. Okay, cool. Thank you for watching.